I want to thank our reader, Nancy Wirtz, for the wonderful reading. She always does such a good job. And thanks also to Karen Drucker, the Chariot Duo, and our own CSL music team for the wonderful music that supports the message today. Today, as we continue our amazing 2024 spiritual journey, as I mentioned earlier, we're blessed to have Reverend Catherine Bonin providing our message called Lighten Up. But before I turn you over to Reverend Catherine, here's your affirmation for the week. What is the one choice you might make today to look up into the light when challenges occur? To learn to laugh, to lighten your load, and to let go of what no longer serves you so you can live in the present moment. One more time. What is the one choice you might make today to look up into the light when challenges occur, to learn to laugh, to lighten your load, and to let go of what no longer serves you, living in the present moment?
Well, good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure to be with you today. Let's get started, shall we? A priest and a taxi driver both died and went to heaven. St. Peter was at the pearly gates waiting for them both. "Come with me," he said. And the taxi driver got in, and then the priest got in. First stop was a beautiful mansion. It had everything you could imagine, from a bowling alley to an Olympic-sized swimming pool. "This is for you," St. Peter said to the taxi driver. "Wow," he was impressed. "My word, thank you," said the taxi driver. Well, next, St. Peter led the priest to a rough old shack with a bunk bed and a little old television set inside. Wait a minute," the priest said to St. Peter. "I think you're mixed up. Shouldn't I be the one who gets the mansion? After all, I was a priest. I went to church every day and I preached God's word." "Yes, that's true. You did those things," St. Peter said. "But during your Sunday sermons, people slept. When the taxi driver drove, people prayed." Well, I'll try not to put you to sleep, and we'll all pray. Deal? I understand you're talking about health this month. So this morning, I'm going to offer up a few ideas to help maintain wholeness and good health. My talk is called Lighten Up, and that's what we're going to explore: ways to lighten up that heaviness that can bring us down, and over an extended period of time, it can cause health issues. And I'm going to make a confession here. This is very personal to me, and there's a reason that Reverend Larrye asked me to talk about this, even if she doesn't really know it. Because 5 years ago, 2019, I went through 7 major life changes in the course of 1 year. I resisted every one of them, and that made them even more difficult. I got through them all, and I emerged a different person. It was really hard. And they say that the body keeps the score. You see, those changes took a real toll on my health. And it did take a while. In the past 3 years, I had 4 major surgeries, along with battling and beating cancer. And I'm back, baby, I'm back. Once again, I'm enjoying a life of health and wholeness. We know that our thoughts are things, they're prayers. They create our experience. So let's use what we know. Let's use the law of majority. That means that our experience of life is a direct representation of the majority of our thoughts and our feelings. One of the fundamental ideas of metaphysics, and it's how we create. I'm absolutely convinced that the physical problems that I dealt with for those 3 years were a direct result of how I handled, or didn't handle for that matter, those earlier stresses. And today, I'm determined to use what I know to continue to create a life that's filled with happiness, joy, and good health. And today, I'm going to share 3 things that helped me get through those very difficult times. The first is to look up. Now, I'm not advocating looking for a God that's up there in the clouds, nor am I suggesting to you to look at heaven up there. Because science of mind teaches us that both God and heaven are right here, right now, in this present moment where we are. You see, it's a metaphor to lift your eyes, lift your consciousness, lift your view, to turn away from the condition, turn away from what's bringing you down, and look from a higher place in consciousness. Looking up means being positive and optimistic about those experiences in our life that seem dark and dreary. It means turning toward the light, especially when things seem dark and dreary. And that's when it's most difficult. So that's when we have to remember. So, how do we remember? Well, one of my favorite ways is to think of something that Emmett Fox wrote in a little pamphlet called The Golden Key. In that pamphlet, he says the golden key is to look for God instead. That simple phrase. He says, when we're troubled, when we're worried, when we're down in the dumps, look for God instead. In other words, look up. And something I know for sure is that we always find what we're looking for. So even in a situation where there's illness, can you look up? Can you look for God in it? And if you can't, maybe ask yourself what I asked myself so many times during those 3 years. I asked the illness, what have you come to teach me? I was looking for God instead of the pain, instead of the difficulty. I was looking up, looking for the light, looking for the lesson and the gift in it. Rumi says that grapes want to turn into wine. He wrote an incredible poem about being drunk on the wine of the beloved. Grapes want to turn into wine. They go through a very difficult process so that they can be all that they can be. What he's talking about is our internal longing and all of the steps we take to return home to God. Connecting to the sacred is perhaps our deepest need, our deepest desire. When I was sick, I was in the illness a lot, a lot. What I didn't do, though, was I didn't connect enough. I didn't pray enough or meditate enough or trust enough or ask what was in this for me enough. I tended to spend some time wallowing in that illness. So how do we remember to turn towards the light? We find things that help us. To me, a lighthouse has deep personal meaning. It's a symbol for my ministry. It was the theme of my ordination so many years ago. It means so much to me because it stands tall, like I do. I'm 6 feet tall. It stands tall, firmly grounded in the calm or stormy seas. Regardless of the situation, it shines its light. It's a beacon as bright as day, burning through the fog, shining in the night, guiding those in trouble back home. Whenever we're lost or in trouble, whenever we have a problem of any kind, we can remember the light. And in my case, I see a lighthouse. All we have to do is be conscious. All we have to do is pay attention. Notice that we have forgotten that we're in the muck and look up. Sometimes remembering is hard. In Genesis, the Bible tells us that Adam fell asleep. Never does it tell us that he woke up. Course in Miracles says that our job is to wake up and to stay awake, just like looking up and the symbol of a lighthouse are metaphors. Waking up is also a metaphor for remembering the truth of who we are. Could it be that the meaning of enlightenment is simply remembering who we are, turning towards the light? The Hindus tell us that a child in the womb sings constantly. Do not let me forget who I am. But then, in those first moments after birth, when the baby begins to cry, that cry is a brand new song. Oh no, I am forgetting. Oh no, I have forgotten. You see, enlightenment is our natural state. It's the fruit that comes from being present over and over again. It's that simple. We might want the path to enlightenment to be orderly, predictable, and well defined, but the truth is, the way of the heart is a landscape that's discoverable only in the journey. And the journey, like a labyrinth, takes us many different ways. It's a circle, a flower that opens petal by petal, a spiral, a dance around a still point, the center of all things. And of course, that center is light. And in that great spiral, in that great dance, we always, always return to where we started, only each time with a fuller, more open heart. The Kabbalah, the book of Jewish mysticism, says that the most exalted mystical states circle back to the simplicity of daily life, daily prayers, family, and the lighting of the Sabbath candles. There's the light again. And if you're Catholic, or Christian, think about going into a church and lighting candles. When you meditate, do you light a candle? Saint Teresa teaches us the same thing. The monastic life of order and selflessness does not end with union with the divine, she said. Instead, we must return from that place again and again to our daily life so that we can bring the radiance we experience there to our everyday world. The Buddhists say, when hungry, eat, when tired, sleep. Now, before you go off and say, you mean we sat here this whole time just to hear that? Think about this a little. By being present to the simple needs we actually have to survive, we can also be present to life as it's happening. We can see a child smile across the table or on a jungle gym. We can see a bird in a tree. We can smell the lilac tree as we walk by or hear the sound of the waves against the shore. We can feel the warmth of the sun on our skin, and we can know the presence of the divine in every moment. Enlightenment can be as easy as breaking life down into the simplicity of the present moment. Because as human beings, we tend not to live in the present. We time travel way too much, thinking and worrying about what happened in the past, those woulda, coulda, shoulda moments, or what might happen in the future. What if, when Socrates was in prison awaiting his death, he heard a fellow prisoner reciting a beautiful poem. He asked the man to teach the poem to him. Why? The man asked. You're being put to death tomorrow. What good would it be for you to memorize a poem? Socrates answered, so I can enjoy the learning in this moment, and I can die knowing one more thing. You see, it wasn't about yesterday. It wasn't about tomorrow. It was about the love of learning that Socrates had and that wisdom of living in the present moment. Focusing on this moment right here, right now, removes the mind from drifting. It removes us from thinking about wants and needs and desires. It saves us the time of time travel and allows us to open our heart to the light that's right here where each of us is. The light that's in this present moment, all the beauty, all the love, all the joy of God expressing itself all around us. Metaphysically and physically, sometimes looking up, looking for the light was and still is one of the greatest tools we have in our toolbox. So this pastor was giving a sermon on temperance, and he said, if I have all the beer in the world, I'd take it and pour it in the river. If I had all the wine in the world, I'd take that and pour it in the river. And finally, shaking his fist in the air, if I had all the whiskey in the world, I'd take that and pour it in the river. And with that, he ended his sermon and sat down. Well, the song leader stood up with a mischievous grin on her face, and she invited the congregants to open their hymnals to page number 365 to sing, "Shall We Gather at the River?" Oh, telling silly jokes. Well, I'm telling silly jokes for a reason. I'm trying to get you to laugh because laughter is good for us. So take some time to lighten up by laughing. Incorporate as much laughter into your life as you can. Maybe you've heard of Norman Cousins. He wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness. In 1964, he was almost paralyzed with a degenerative tissue disease, an autoimmune disease. And he was told that he had only a few months to live. Well, he certainly wasn't going to spend those last few months in a hospital bed. So he checked himself out of the hospital and into a hotel room where he took high doses of vitamin C and he watched comedy, specifically Marx Brothers and Candid Camera. He laughed and discovered that for every 15 minutes a day of solid belly laughter that he could experience, he found he slept for 2 hours pain-free. Well, he made a commitment to himself to experience at least 4 sessions of 15 minutes a day of solid belly laughter so that he could sleep for 8 hours in peace. And Norman Cousins went on to experience complete healing. In a 6-year study by the Japan Geriatric Society, which included over 12,000 adults over 65 years of age, the participants were asked to complete a regular questionnaire about when, where, how often, and why they laughed each week. The study found that those who laughed more in individual family and social settings had a reduced risk of dementia. Another study in the Netherlands followed over 50,000 people for more than 15 years and found that those with a sense of humor lived an average of 8 years longer than their counterparts. Have you ever done laughter yoga? It's a real thing, and it's wonderful. You can do it in the privacy of your own home or with a bunch of people. If you Google laughter yoga near me, you might find it offered in a park or in a community center or a senior center near you. It's all about the restorative power of laughter. It's all about learning what Norman Cousins knew, that when you laugh, you're literally bringing blood flow to your core. You're exercising your internal organs and you're making yourself healthier. You know, laughter reduces physical pain. It boosts your immune system. It decreases inflammation. It supports a healthy heart. It improves brain function. It increases endorphins. It reduces stress, anxiety, and depression. It strengthens relationships, and it can ease conflict. It can promote teamwork, and it strengthens personal connections. Now, who doesn't want all of those things in their life? Here's something to try. Part 1 of your homework. Tomorrow morning, stand in front of a mirror and start with ho, 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 and then do it again. Ho, ho, and then a third time, ho, ho, ho. And before you finish, you'll notice there's a smile. Then keep it going. Keep pretending that you're Santa. Ho, 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 ho. And chances are you'll start giggling. And within a minute or so, you'll find that you're really laughing. And if you can start your day with just a minute of laughter, you might find that you're able to carry a connection to joy with you throughout the day. There's a Jewish proverb that says, as soap is to the body, laughter is to the soul. I have that on a yellow sticky on my bathroom mirror to remind me to start every day with laughing. See, we all get into trouble when we take ourselves too seriously. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, knew this when he said, I don't ever take myself seriously, but I take what I am doing very seriously. So let's take good health very seriously, and let's make laughter a serious part of our daily practice. Let's look for things that are funny, because another spiritual law is, as I said before, that we always find what we're looking for. Just a few days ago, after finishing a very frustrating telephone call, I went to the grocery store to get some stuff for a salad for dinner. In the car, I said to myself, okay, Catherine, look for something funny. Well, mindlessly, I went to the salad dressing aisle. Now, here's something silly because I almost always make my own salad dressing. But for some reason, there I was standing in the pre made salad dressing aisle. I noticed Newman's own salad dressing labels. And I noticed that there was Paul Newman in different kinds of costumes. The Caesar bottle had him looking like a Roman or maybe a Greek emperor. The Asian dressing bottle had him looking like a sushi chef. And the Italian bottle had him looking like someone you'd find driving a gondola in the canals of Venice. I started laughing uncontrollably there in the grocery store. Thank you, God. I needed that. When I got home, I decided to look up a bit about this company, Newman's Own. I mean, I knew that it was started by Paul Newman, the actor turned entrepreneur, and I knew that he gave the proceeds from the products he sold to charity. That was pretty much all I knew. What I discovered that he never left home without his sense of humor. In fact, he took great pride in it. It was his very sense of humor that was the driving force behind the launch of the Newman's Own brand. It was Christmas Eve in 1970, and Newman was having a few drinks with his writer friend, A.E. Hotchner. The two of them had had a few too many, and they decided to make a giant vat of Newman's Own homemade salad dressing. The container was so big that Newman had to use a canoe paddle to stir it. Their fun, though, didn't stop there. Instead of keeping what they made for themselves, they decided to fill some old wine bottles with the dressing, cork them, and distribute them to neighbors as Christmas presents. So when it got dark, they went around the neighborhood leaving bottles of their concoction on all of their neighbors' doorsteps. One of those neighbors turned out to be the up and coming homemaker guru, Martha Stewart. She enjoyed the taste of that dressing so much and the fact that it was preservative free, that she contacted Newman and convinced him to make a sample to give to Stu Leonard's the local grocery store. Stu Leonard's immediately ordered what Newman describes as a freight train load of the dressing. And from there, the late night prank turned into a full-fledged company. It seems that incorporating humor into his packaging was really important to Newman. On the first labels, he poked fun at all those companies that talk about their ancestry. He wrote, "Fine foods since February," right there under the logo. When asked about it, he said, "We don't take ourselves very seriously as business people, but considering this was something that started out as a joke, we sure do have a lot of fun with it." There's a beautiful book called Between Heaven and Mirth, and it's by Father James Martin, a Jesuit priest. And in that book, the reader's asked to consider that even Jesus had a sense of humor. Now, when thinking about Jesus's life in the Bible, I often say that to understand the Bible, one has to put on the sandals of a person living in the Middle East 22,000 years ago. Jesus used humor to punch holes in the pomposity he saw, particularly when he spoke about Herod. Part of Jesus's charisma was that he went to parties, he drank wine, he used irony, and he hung out with outcasts. In Luke 6:41, he tells the hypocrites, "How can you say to your neighbor, 'Let me take a speck out of your eye,' when there's a log in your own?" Back in that time and place, a statement like that would have been laugh out loud funny. Jesus also seemed to like comparing rich people to camels, the biggest, ugliest, most difficult animals around. He talked about the blind leading the blind. He asked what fool would put a lamp under a bushel basket and not on a lamp table or a lampstand? What kind of a father, when his own son asks for a fish, would give him a snake? Jesus joked about the left hand not knowing what the right hand was doing. He even told people to get new linen underwear and then leave it in a crevasse on a rock, which would leave them what? Naked? So I talked earlier about staying in the present. And one of the subtle ways we time travel is by holding on to the things that happened in the past. I'm a scuba diver. And because I love diving so much, I'm sure that I've talked about diving with you before, but I probably have not told you about the decorator crab. You see, the decorator crab crawls around on the bottom of the ocean and he picks up things that he can stick to his shell because his shell has these hairs that are kind of like Velcro, and they hold things on to his shell. He'll pick up a piece of coral and attach it to his shell. He'll pick up a sponge and attach it to his shell. He'll pick up a leaf and attach it here so that it hides his antenna. Once I even saw a decorator crab with a bottle cap on its back. Now he's decorating his shell or hiding himself from predators. But unfortunately, he can do that so much that he weighs himself down and slows himself down. And eventually, he can die because he can no longer move. So, my question to you now is, do you do that? Do you take old hurts, ideas, expectations, resentment, and carry them around with you? Can you see how they not only weigh you down, but they shape your experience of life? All of that can slow you down in every way, physically, in how and how much you move, emotionally and spiritually, because when we feel weighed down, burdened, we hurt even more. We get more tired. We want and need more sleep. And often we become depressed and disconnected. We forget to look up. We forget to laugh. We forget the truth of who we are. Back in the 1980s, I remember meeting John McCain. Someone asked him how he could be so happy after having spent so many years as a POW. His answer, at first I was really angry, and that angry was sort of a prison of its own. I had to forgive my captors because that was the only way I could find my freedom. There's another similar story, and that is about a senior monk and a junior monk who were traveling together. At one point, they came to a river with a strong current. As the monks were preparing to cross the river, they saw a young, beautiful woman also attempting to cross. The young woman asked if they could help her cross to the other side. Two monks looked at each other because they had taken vows to never touch a woman. But then, without a word, the older monk picked up the woman, carried her across the river, and placed her gently on the other side, and then continued on his journey. The younger monk, once he got over being shocked by what the older monk had done, crossed the river. And after joining his companion, he said nothing for 2 or 3 hours. And then finally, he couldn't contain himself any longer. He said, "As monks, we're not permitted to touch a woman. How could you carry that woman on your shoulders?" The older monk looked at him and said, "Brother, I set her down on the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying her?" That simple Zen story and the tale about John McCain offer us a beautiful message about letting go. How often do we carry around past hurts, holding on to resentments when the person we are really hurting is ourselves? We can all go through times in life when other people say things or behave in a way that's hurtful towards us. We can choose to ruminate over past actions or events, but it will ultimately weigh us down and sap us of our energy. Or we can choose to let go of what doesn't serve us anymore and concentrate on the present moment. Until we can find a level of peace and happiness in our present circumstances, we will never be content because now is all we'll ever have, and God is always found in the present. Letting go is delicious. We already know what it's like. Think about what it feels like every night when we fall asleep. That delicious, luscious moment between asleep and awake. That is letting go. So, folks, do your homework this week because this week, your assignment is to laugh every morning And then from today on, look up, find the light, laugh, find the joy, and let go, find the freedom. Do this, and everything, including your health, will be much better. Now let's pray. Bringing my consciousness and my awareness to that place within me, that still point where the light shines so brightly, where I know that God is and I am that beacon of light standing strong. I remember the truth of who I am. And just as I know this for myself, I know this for each person here today, each person hearing the sound of my voice, and each person who has forgotten the truth of who they are. I can know it for everyone right here and right now in this moment, that each being is a sentient light. Each being is an expression of God, one with the one. And that light is always there, shining brightly like a lighthouse. Each person is a beacon of that light of the divine. And I know for each person here that they remember something from this talk today, whether it's about being that light, whether it's about lightening up by laughing and finding the joy in the present moment, or by lightening up by letting go of those things that no longer serve. I know that each person here finds that light, that joy, and that laughter, that freedom that comes with knowing God in the present moment. I know that each person finds better health, wholeness, and more joy as they remember the truth of who they are. And so it's with great gratitude that I have for this truth, for being able to embrace this idea of lightening up, finding that peace, that wholeness, that joy, and that truth of being. It's with deep gratitude and appreciation that I have for each one of you for sharing this morning with me, and with the truth that I find in these tools and this practice, because it truly is a practice that I am grateful for. So it's with that deep gratitude and so much love that I release my word. I call it good because I know it is, and so it is. Amen. Goodbye, my friends. Have a wonderful day.
Wow. Reverend Catherine never disappoints, does she? Such beautiful stories and quotes. And since she did such a beautiful prayer and challenged you for the week, let's just remind you of your affirmation. How is it I so easily, effortlessly, and willingly look up into the light when challenges occur, learn to laugh to lighten my load, and let go of what no longer serves me, living in the present moment. And I want to thank everyone that continues to donate. And we are continuing to find a place where we can have services once or twice a month. Of course, we'll keep the online services as well. Thank you again, and enjoy our offertory song.